Okay, so we are now broadcasting live to all attendees and waiting for some folks to join in. And I see them shuttling in. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We're going to give just another minute or two as we let some more folks hop on the line. And I see them clicking in. Okay. We were just chatting before we let you guys into the room that we're pretty sure that children will be interrupting, dogs will be barking, some package will be delivered. I don't know that there's anywhere around that these days. This happened before when the world was still spinning. That was already the case, and now it's even more so.
Yep.
So it happens to us. Just know that we know it's happening to you too. Okay. So our attendees are sort of clicking up here. So I think we are in a good way to just get started. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Kalia Garrido. I am in charge of digital strategy, marketing, and events here at Great Data Minds. And today I will be your moderator for our discussion. So a little bit about Great Data Minds. I feel like a lot of you know us by now, but for those of you who don't yet, welcome to our community. Great Data Minds is a collective of passionate data advocates, activists. We do both. We do both. So we offer advisory services, resources, and solutions around all things data. We also recently have developed a new series of all virtual events that we are, with mixed feelings, calling our Cabin Fever Reliever series. And we have 3 different types of virtual events that you can join safely from the comfort of your own home. One is Quarantini Relief Happy Hours. Those generally take place on Thursdays around 4 o'clock. Those are fun. So we have one coming up, and actually Mike's going to be hosting that this Thursday at 4. So please make sure to join us for that.
Yes, please.
We're also doing some virtual lunch and learns in which we are releasing some of our paid content for free as a way to just kind of keep that conversation going. And then just like our event today, we have a whole lineup of existing virtual events that we've been doing since before we had to. So our goal here really overall with this program is just to keep the data community connected and educated and inspired to just kind of keep on doing what we're doing. So make sure you check out our events at greatdataminds.com/events. And if you haven't already signed up for our newsletter, please make sure that you do that. That's how you're going to stay abreast of all of the cool things we have coming up. That's greatdataminds.com, and you can sign up right there. So some housekeeping for today's session. We're going to keep the conversation to maybe about 45, 50 minutes or so, and then we're going to open everything up for questions. All of the attendees are muted, and we can't see your cameras, so we don't care what you're wearing. But you can feel free to use the chat, which has been enabled, and the Q&A has been enabled, and just kind of add those things in, add your questions in or your comments as you go. And we will save some time at the end of our discussion to open up for that. So without further ado, in today's discussion, we are going to take a deep dive into the world of self-service analytics, why this is important, how to get it done, and what some of the benefits are that your company can feel if this is executed properly. We have 2 esteemed transformation experts to guide us through this conversation today. First is our repeat offender here at Great Data Minds. This is Mike Lampa. He is one of our Great Data Mind advisors. He's a SAFE certified consultant, and he has been transforming enterprise analytics programs for 20 plus years.
Too many years.
All the years. And then our special guest today is Sherri Benzelock. Sherri is a seasoned executive at the highest level and has made an impressive career out of leading global teams in strategy and digital transformation. And her past job titles include VP of Finance, VP of Analytics, and CFO. No big deal. Sherri, thank you for joining us. Mike, thank you for joining us so much. And Mike, I'll turn the floor over to you.
All right. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you very much. Hey, everyone. And hello, Sherri. How are you?
I'm doing great today, Mike. Thank you.
It's good. I sure wish we were still working in the same company.
Me too.
Yeah.
But it's good to see your face.
Yeah, and, likewise.
Yep.
All right. So self-service, it's not really a new thing, right? It's been, we've had self-service discovery-based tools hit the market, late 2000s. And then shortly after that, we had the self-service data curation tools hit the market. But, however, when I go into enterprises, I'm still seeing a lot of them struggling with whether to make the decision to enable the business information consumers with the analytics on their own. Yet I'm seeing others embracing the approach, and I've seen some with phenomenal results and some with mixed results. But I understand you've got a pretty clear and rather passionate opinion on that debate.
I do. I
All
do.
right. So what's the elevator pitch? I mean, why should enterprises seriously consider putting a vision and a mission around implementing a self-service analytics program?
Yeah, I think that is probably a really fundamental question to ask. But in my view, the elevator pitch is people want to make good decisions. Whether they're working on the shop floor or whether they're an executive, they want to be successful in their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And what better way to do that than to empower them? Empower them with information to do great things.
Yeah. Empower them because they probably really know their data.
Yes and no.
Okay.
So in a lot of companies that I have worked with in the past, data isn't always easily accessible. And, regardless of the fact that it might be a giant conglomerate, a top 100 company in the world, or, smaller companies, it tends to be difficult for a lot of folks to access the information they want. And in a lot of ways as well, sometimes that data isn't contextualized in making it easy for them to have those insights right at their fingertips. So I see a lot of people still trying to muddle through that data and trying to figure out what is that data telling them that they should do differently. And that still, to me, is quite an opportunity because we shouldn't make it hard for people to have to sift through information. The goal should be to try to get people to have the information at their fingertips so that they can make that decision more timely. And sometimes it is, about the time, getting information on a timely basis is not necessarily that easy either. So, I still see a lot of those challenges and issues out there in the real world.
Yeah, I do too. It does amaze me, after 20 some odd years of being in this industry, building data warehouses, I still walk into companies that do not have any kind of data strategy.
Yeah.
It's just phenomenal. So if I'm enabling the business to do more of the visualization and reporting and your insight generation on their own, what's that free and IT up to do? Because they used to be the report writers.
Yeah, I think what that does is it really allows IT to get more data ready and prepared for people to consume it. It helps, empower the people, but also, in my view, it's empowering IT because then they have more time to, pull that data together, make sense of it, contextualize it, and provide it to the business and better understand what the business is consuming. What are the big challenges that people are still having in getting that data?
Yeah.
And spending time on getting that data ready and prepared and, freeing it, for lack of a better word, democratizing the data so that people can actually, get their hands on the things that they need.
Right. So I'm liking the value prop and the elevator pitch. What are some meaningful, measurable goals and benefits that we would get by implementing a well-conceived self-service program?
There's a lot of value and business benefits to be had. If you think about something as simple as a new insight, being able to really understand what it is that you could do differently or that is going to provide the most value in what you're trying to drive. So an example may be, inventory, understanding inventory levels, and really just trying to understand, what happens if you can have the best visibility to inventory and orders and merging that information together and then thinking about production in that mix and saying, am I producing the right products to fulfill my orders, and do I have the right inventory that is going to help me meet my customer commitments. So you get not only benefits in terms of, value, but you're also meeting your customer demands. So you can have improved customer perceptions and customer experiences because you're able to make, better and faster decisions about what you need to do for that customer. You have lower costs in that situation potentially if you avoid producing something that you really don't need. There can be some significant value there. And also, if you have to spend a lot of time personally, having to pull all that information together, it might not be timely. And then, you've got the, call it productivity loss of the folks that are sifting through and churning through that data and the time that they have to spend doing that. And then again, the IT component. So there's a plethora of value.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah. In those use cases, there's the outcome that you're trying to achieve. Then there's the productivity of the people who are working through that, and then the productivity in the background that people tend not to see on the IT side and things like that. So in my view, it's really a very powerful way to drive value at a fairly low cost in the organization.
Yeah, it's interesting. And you're hinting a little bit around the people and the culture side of it too. So I would suspect those could be some measurable objectives and goals, right?
Yeah.
Does the self-service enablement, self-service analytics enablement programs, does that start to promote business data, data-driven business decisioning cultures in companies?
It does. It does. I think it can be a little bit difficult for some people to accept and adopt. But for the most part, I would say, as an individual producing data for others to consume, it's extremely empowering. And like I said, most people, 99.9% of people want to do a great job. And so, if you can help them provide value to the organization, they feel great about what they're doing.
Yeah.
I think sometimes when we think about people and culture at the executive levels, sometimes executives need to, I'm going to say maybe couch their behavior a little bit, because new insights can be kind of contradictory to what people have seen in the past, or may contradict a decision that's been made in the past. So culturally, that can be a little bit difficult for certain leaders to be able to address. They might feel like, oh, wow, this is exposing a bad decision that I've made. And so if they respond to that insight in such a way, and they, maybe try to prevent that information from coming out, that can be very detrimental.
It could be detrimental, yeah, absolutely.
So as a leader, it's really important to culturally accept new information and, pivot your decisions. And don't take it personally when somebody brings forward information that you didn't have that might show a different path that should have been chosen at the time. As a leader, we need to culturally be able to, accept those kinds of decisions and informations that have been, made in the past that might be contradictory, and, promote the advocacy of people bringing forward data.
Yeah.
Because you want to really be able to make better decisions going forward. No one's perfect. So, and data certainly isn't perfect. So culturally, I think we need to accept data as leaders so that we can promote the democratization of data. And if you don't have that leadership buy-in and the acceptance of data, a lot of times it tends to really squash some of the efforts that are happening around data democratization.
Right. Yeah. So I love that, full top-down, bottom-up transparency. Let's embrace it. Let's create this culture, bring it out. Let's
That's right.
figure it out. Yeah, love that. All right, so I understand you got some firsthand experience implementing one of these bad boys at a global 100 manufacturing company that we both know real well from our
Yes, we
past.
do.
Um, could you tell me a little bit about how you went about it? Is there kind of a rubric or a recipe for success that you could walk us through?
Yeah, I think there is. So, as I would, think about what are the maybe top 5 things
Mhm.
that you need to think about in deploying self-service in an organization. The first one would be find an executive to help advocate and be a sponsor, and pick a real problem for that executive and try to work on something that is meaningful for them.
Mhm.
I would say to start small. Don't promise the world, but maybe just get a small group together and start demonstrating that there is value in being able to bring additional insights, and allowing the analysts in our organizations to you know play with that data and to understand how to make it more valuable, and using tools like visualization that can really help put the data in a different light, and expose those hidden insights that we can't see in Excel spreadsheets.
Mhm.
So starting small and really helping to prove value, and having that sponsor at the very beginning is really important
Yeah. Yeah.
to getting started.
Yeah, the other thing I like too that I've seen with the program that you had implemented is, taking kind of a front end first approach where you get your visualization um, team and the business SMEs working on it, the data before we even start to do any data modeling or ETL development. Because I know as an architect, if I would have had those kinds of tools available to me back then, I would have saved a good percentage of the long pole in the tent of figuring out the source to target mapping and all that kind of stuff, only to find out all of my assumptions on the data were wrong. Right? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, no,
yeah.
that is so true. We took an approach where our data wasn't perfect and it was hard to get together. There was many different applications and ERPs that we were trying to get information from. And if you start at the bottom with the data and try to make everything, perfect and get it to be there, in a great way, then you're never going to get there. You've got to take that leap and make sure that you've got, some sort of path forward, as you say,
Mhm.
and kind of hone in on those insights and make that more scalable and deliverable,
Yeah.
versus waiting for the perfect data. And you can take action on data, even at its lowest level. And sometimes it's simply just visualizing data in a different way to say, I thought that assumption was that we were buying in a certain way at this factory,
Mhm.
but the data tells me that we're actually not buying that way.
Right, right.
And now I can address that without doing any kind of modeling. Or it could be simply that this would be really valuable information to have, but you know if you don't have good quality data, then you can make a point that investing in cleaning that certain set of data is going to be worth it for you
Mhm.
to start on that data, and it can help you actually prioritize your data efforts
Yeah,
that you need to go through.
I love that. I love that. That's the speed of delivery, right? And
Yeah.
improved quality right on the front end. I love that. So, there's, as we know, there's several self-service oriented visualization platforms, the clicks, the tableaus, the power BIs of the world, and there's many more that are coming online now, and self-service data prep and curation tools like Alteryx and several others that are out on the market. But when you're looking and considering and choosing a self-service enabled platform, what's one of the key considerations that you would have that maybe others don't think about?
For me, the number one thing that you need to think about is the user experience for the analyst community.
Mhm.
It's got to be easy for them to be able to, analyze data, to be able to adopt the tools. And so that user experience is just incredibly important to have in evaluating those tools, and making
Yeah.
sure that you have, who are the different people in your organization that are really using that information, and what do they think about those tools, and how easy is it for them to use them, and how quickly is it for them to learn them.
Mhm.
And if it's easy, then it becomes just kind of a natural thing to migrate to,
Mhm. Mhm.
and it just makes that process a lot easier.
Yeah. And then how about from a partnership standpoint, the relationship between the vendor provider and your enterprise? What's your number one DNA components that they should have?
Yeah, I always think about vendors as partners.
Mhm.
It's not just something you buy. Try to think about how do you partner with your vendors to extract value, and who has the partnership ability to be able to spend time helping you be successful.
Mhm.
Providing good training, possibly for free, because I think a lot of self-service vendors do that. A lot of self-service vendors out there, they also have a strong belief in being able to democratize data and get data into people's hands. So,
Mhm.
picking that partner, making sure that they have a really good support ecosystem that can help make you successful, and having some great um, accessibility to that vendor if
Yeah.
things go difficult, and no deployment of software that I've ever been involved in has gone perfectly, and
Mhm.
I don't think anyone should ever expect it to.
Right.
But knowing that that vendor can provide you support and help you get through that, and they have enough experience to be able to do that, is also really important.
Yeah. So I heard a reinforcement of that transparency and collaborative theme again, right? Yeah.
That's right.
I love that. All right. So big deployment. Give me a feel for how the initial numbers, and then how quickly your self-service program got adoption.
Yeah. So I think, the tool of choice for us at the time was Tableau.
Mhm.
And we had something like 10,000 people deployed on Tableau in less than a year. And which is just incredible if you think about, even given the size of the company I was with, um, it goes to show you how powerful and quickly things were adopted, because people got value from what it was we were doing. They could
Mhm.
see things they haven't been able to see before, and it became a wildfire spread in
Mhm.
terms of adoption, and people wanted to be a part of it, and be able to provide insights. And it was kind of its own snowball effect,
Mhm.
because I think we did it in the right way. We really showed value from the very beginning,
Mhm.
and we made it easy for people to participate, and we gave a lot of room time, or rewards for people who had been able to find things in
Yeah.
the data, and we spent time talking to executives, telling them that don't be nervous about finding different data, embrace it,
Mhm.
and just keep moving forward in terms of being able to make better decisions,
Yeah.
and not concentrate too much on the past.
Yeah.
So having the combination of those things, I think made it really helpful, making the culture one of acceptance of data, giving, people access to data that they needed to have, even if it wasn't perfect or in, some sort of a data warehouse yet, but really trying to think about how do you enable them to get that data, and having a good sponsor and some really good use cases to, to start out with, to demonstrate the value to other people.
Yeah.
It kind of, snowballed from there.
That sounds, what a great Cinderella kind of story, right? But you must have run into a little bit of pain here and there. Enlighten us on some of the things that we need to watch out for if we're going to try to roll one of these out.
Yeah. I think, one of the things that I would say to really watch out for, it's never a Cinderella story. There's always some sort of challenge along the way. Yeah. But, tackle it right away. Don't pretend that it's all perfect and roses, because it never is. But help people get over the hump of not having to have perfect or complete data. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of companies that have, maybe a more finance mentality, and I'm a finance person by trade, and this, I think, is hard for people that have, always said, okay, let's get 100% of the data. Let's, make it 100% accurate. It has to be fully, completed. Yeah. Help them get out of that mindset, because even if you, do have 50% of the data only, you can still find valuable insights in that data. You just have to be careful about how you interpret those results and maybe assume that they are flowing. But getting people over the fact that you don't have to have 100% complete data is something to watch out for. Yeah, especially if you're in an organization who, we need to have 100% accurate information for reporting external financials. Mm-hmm. But for analyzing certain, areas of our business where it's, okay to have, I only have 75% of the information on the performance of this machinery or line in the factory, that's okay. It's still going to provide you with a lot of insights and help you understand how to improve that productivity. But that can be, kind of one of those things to look out for. Mm-hmm. And I think also this, if you have an insight, you need to think about a way to operationalize that data. How do you get that information into a normal business process so that it can not just be a one-time event, it can be something that is ongoing. And so, thinking about, is this a one-time usage and activity that you're going to execute on, or does it need to be really deployed across the organization on a longer term basis? Mm-hmm. That can be a bit harder. And so really thinking through, what are we going to do with this? Who has to have this information? And how do you make it part of that person's process? Mm-hmm. To be able to execute on that can be a hard thing to do. So really thinking about that from the beginning is important. Yeah.
So that kind of hints to me that there's an opportunity for some kind of established rules of engagement between the business and IT. Because if I get to the point where I want to operationalize it, my sense is the business doesn't want to run that operation every day. And that's the kind of stuff that IT is well suited for.
That's right. That's right. I think the most valuable thing that you can do when you work with IT and you say, okay, this is something that the business needs longer term, because you've already created it and, understand what kind of data you need, it becomes a blueprint for IT. They don't have to then, go back and say, well, what information do you need and where is this data coming from? They can focus on, okay, you've already done that. You've already identified those things. Mm-hmm. Now we just need to bring that data together and help create it on a more sustainable basis.
Yep,
and be able to get that into production.
Yeah, cool. How about, do Did you get pushback from a governance standpoint or
Oh,
security
yes.
concern standpoint? How did you navigate that?
Yes. So governance is clearly extremely important. So I'm not going to, pretend to minimize that, because you need to be, very conscious of governance in your organization. But I think that organizations tend to, have maybe a overarching type of I'm going to just protect this data, and I am nervous about giving it to people.
Mm-hmm.
But I think how to address that is to teach people how to govern data. So let's just take an example of using something like Excel or PowerPoint in your organization. Most of the time, that data is circulated through emails. There's already kind of, let's say, maybe a lack of control on that. But I would say also that most people that are working in an organization understand that they can't share data to certain people or certain kinds of data.
Mm-hmm.
So until the data landscape is perfect, which is a very, that's a thing to aspire to, but it's not an easy thing to achieve. You've got to help people understand data governance and help them share smartly.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that we did on the governance side was, first of all, we promoted, people trying to explore this data, but when they went to share it, we actually implemented some controls.
Okay.
So just helping them understand how to use the, embedded features of data access and data security in the self-service tools.
Mm-hmm.
How do they then leverage a server application versus individual files being, shared through emails, and so that they could apply their own data security. So say, for example, an analyst did sales analysis by rep. Well, that seems like something that could potentially be, used for commissions. And if there's commissioning information in there, that's something that you don't want to share.
Right.
But typically that analyst is already looking at that data. And sometimes they're, not, they're scared to share it because, the data could accidentally escape or, be emailed out in error with other people's data. So using these self-service tools and teaching people how to apply basic security and governance access and showing them how to do that really empowers them to be able to take control and say, okay, I'm going to get this data out to the people who need it, but I'm comfortable in the way that we can address the security and the governance,
Right. Okay.
and helping people understand what that really means. So it's more
Sounds
about
like,
education.
Yeah, and it sounds like that was an evolution too, but you had identified it up front, didn't have it figured out, but you identified that you had to do it, right?
You rarely have anything figured out at the beginning.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just trial and error.
Right. All right. So phenomenal story there with the adoption of self-service analytics visualization kind of tool. Did you stop there, or did you enable self-service and data prep as the next step, or tell me a little bit?
Yeah, we did.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so we started. So I guess we started with two problem statements. One is, how do we understand all this? We literally had so much data that it became stifling for our analyst community to be able to go through.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually started with those two problem statements. How do we present this data and analyze it in such a way that it makes sense and we can find new insights in it? But how do we bring that data together and make it easy for our analytics community to bring things together in a way that was more effective than, say, Excel or Access type of tools? So we actually had two paths in that sense, where we looked at, okay, how do we help the business bring that data together on their own? And we ended up using Alteryx for that. And we had certain people that we helped get trained up on that data part. And then we took a broader approach to the visualization and said, okay, how do we understand how to create a community that can appropriately visualize data? And how do we create a maybe smaller community of folks that can prep that data for consumption in different areas within their group?
Mm-hmm.
So in, say, for example, in finance, what we did was we said, maybe pick one person in your area who is really great with data and make them your data, aggregator, your consolidator, the person who is producing that information in your group. And then they're the ones that can spend the time learning the self-service prep tool and can create a data set that's consumable for folks in their area, which ended up being, a really great thing to do, because what was happening before that was, everyone was creating their own data sets. And then when that happens, you lose the source of the truth. And so, thinking about how do you solve for that data prep challenge differently than the data visualization challenge was helpful, because I think there's, two different strategies there to really think about as you're, solving two different issues.
Cool. All right. So what's next in this crazy world of self-service? What's your crystal ball say?
I think, where I see the market going is not just, being able to make it easy for data to come together, but being able to apply that governance on it. I see that coming into some of these self-service tools and making it even easier for folks to govern data and put security and access rules around that. I see the self-service, say, analytics piece expanding much more than, through descriptive analytics. We've had good tools out there to do more advanced analytics, but I think we're seeing more and more of the advanced analytics being applied through self-service and making it easier for people to do more advanced analysis on the data without, having to go through a lot of education and understanding how to run a specific kind of algorithm. There are only, there are algorithms embedded in some of these tools that are making it, I think you still need to be careful with that advanced analytics, because you need to understand what models are appropriate to apply and if you're actually getting the right result. But I think it's a great way for our analytics community to be able to explore and start doing some of that. And if you're lucky enough to have a data scientist in your organization, that data scientist can help provide some oversight in terms of what, kind of models to use. But as the technology gets stronger and stronger, I'm hoping that the technology at some point will automatically help choose, depending on the use case, what kind of advanced math we can apply to those use cases to get more predictive insights.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Although I'm losing all my consulting revenue because the tools are doing it all for me. All right. So if I'm sitting here and I'm still struggling with a reason to enable self-service, give me my 3 aha moments that I should take away to help me get over the edge.
Value is your number one. In my experience, you can pay back these investments and drive value quickly. The speed at which you can, find insights in this data is incredible. And, think about the fact that you've probably had that data for quite some time, and to be able to view it in different ways and find new, insights about it is extremely powerful. And, I think it's one of those, as a CFO, no-brainer investments that can be paid back extremely easily. I think, you have to be conscious of the culture and the people, but spending the right time there, you can easily get people to adopt if they understand what's in it for them,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, don't be afraid to take the self-service plunge, because, you can demonstrate that value. And if people understand it, they'll grab onto it, and they'll want to, participate in those kinds of things. So don't be afraid of just trying something new. And I guess thirdly, I've got to go back to the value. There is just a lot of value in these tools. There is an investment for the most part, but we at a very large company paid back that investment in months.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, and so it's one of those quick wins that doesn't require a huge amount of investment, if it's done correctly, to be able to provide value. And that's what people want to do in business, is find areas to create new value. And to me, that's the biggest thing that you can do with these tools. So just don't be afraid, just try something new. And it might not work perfectly the first time, and that's okay. Just keep learning and finding out what others have done, and keep moving forward.
Yeah. So I've got this visual in my mind's eye of this dynamic, fun, exciting environment where people are just getting all over the data and freaking out when they find these insights, right?
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yes, I think that is, so my personal experience, which is probably one of the most rewarding experiences I've ever had, is that when we deployed self-service at the major 100 company in the world, I had people that joined my team that didn't work for me, that were so excited by what we were doing that they just joined in and wanted to be part of it. And it was fun. And it feels good if you can contribute to your business. And that is what was probably the most rewarding thing to me, as a person leading that initiative, was the fact that, you made something that was kind of mundane, or, maybe a bit boring, and you'd always done it a certain way, into something that people really wanted to be part of. And it was exciting, and, people brought value to the table.
Yeah.
And they felt good about it.
That's cool. That's very cool. I love your story.
I do too.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
Yeah,
Thank you for that.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, it's my pleasure. And it's never easy, to do some of these things, and, even at such a big company, especially, but all you need is a little bit of momentum.
Yeah.
And, if you can focus on getting that little bit of momentum, bigger things will come.
Yep. And a lot of perseverance on the
That's,
leaders
yes.
side.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, awesome. I don't know, Kelly, do we have a few minutes for questions?
We do have a few minutes for questions, and we have some questions kind of flowing in here.
All right.
So one of the first questions that we have is from Jed. He is asking, do you have a self-service horror story that could serve as a lesson learned for the rest of us? Hopefully one that ultimately worked out for the best in the overall self-service journey.
Yeah. So I would say, I don't know about horror, but maybe a little bit scary. I would say, we had an issue at a company that I've worked at recently, where we had done some really great analysis, but we really struggled to get over the governance piece. And we said we had all this great information, and we kind of got stuck in our ability to share it. And that's probably one of the most disheartening things for me, is you actually have something that can help the business, and the business wants it, but you've got to work with, the security teams to be able to get them comfortable with being able to share. And so, how we overcame that obstacle, you've got to communicate and work with the people that are involved in these processes, and help them really understand. And so it took, in that case, more time than I would have liked. but bringing those folks in from the beginning in terms of your cybersecurity or IT groups that maybe have traditionally tried to protect that data from being shared, and really helping them understand and go through what is this data really, is there any PII data in there? Is there anything that would think about a GDPR type of a situation? Are we actually sharing anything that is going to violate any laws? And if you can help them understand that is not the case, and that you can work with them on implementing a policy or a process to go through, where you go through that check and you help people understand what those things are that you can't share, it just makes that part of it go faster. And so, yeah, stuck analysis that has great insight in it is something hard to swallow.
Sure.
But you've got to make sure that also at the same time you're protecting the company, and work with those people and help them understand, help them be part of the process. And at the same time, you're likely going to need to have some new data governance rules, some new policies, and really help define what those things are more clearly that you can and can't share, and say, okay, that's my, platinum data. Platinum data needs to be treated a different way because it has ultra security risks. But if we're dealing with bronze data, that's okay to share. That's on a list where we welcome the distribution of that kind of data. But maybe thinking about changing that policy and really helping people understand and interpret some of these laws and rules then becomes more longer term very important.
Yeah, I like that concept. Varying levels of governance. Based on the content of the data, and of course the impact of the insight if I take a decision against it.
Yeah.
Great.
And then, you've done a good job. We had also a question come through in the meanwhile from Edward, and I think that you've pretty well answered it, Sherri. He was asking, my company is heavy into governance and security, especially with privacy laws coming out. How did you get support and buy-in from risk management and security to let that business get after the data?
Yeah, I think that's probably, one of the biggest obstacles is this concept of security and governance. But what I would suggest in that case is take that discussion away from just the self-service tools and have that discussion at a more broad data governance conversation, and really think about, traditionally it, was a protection of data. But now with all of the data that is available, that's not really applicable anymore. So thinking about, implementing this type of a tiered structure and being able to identify, what are the different data levels of security, and, can you quickly identify the things that are at the bottom that really don't need to go through some sort of a governance process because it's like machine data off of a factory piece of equipment, or it's it's customer care response metrics or something like that. Those kinds of things likely are in that lower range, but doing a conscious project to kind of categorize the types of data that you have and understand, what do you do when you have the data that needs to be protected, and how do you apply those security and privacy rules at those different levels will help you get to that end state. And that's not always easy to implement, but it definitely is different than the way that governance has been approached in the past.
And I am seeing the software market respond to that very need there with some of these data cataloging tools that are coming out. They've got embedded machine learning algorithms in them to look at the content and help us understand what we're dealing with before we start dealing with it. So,
yes, cool. I think that, as we see the technology advance, We will see more capabilities in the metadata and the governance aspect of our data, but it's still a very manual process overall. So I think those policies are still critical.
Yep.
And I'm hoping that one day the technology catches up to this particular area and can help us more effectively mask the data elements that, as we consume them, that need to be masked. And that is a metadata exercise. And so as the metadata tools get stronger and stronger, we can hopefully have the technology do more of the work. But right now it's still people having to do a lot of that work and understanding, what kind of data is this? Does it have to be masked? And then, envision a perfect world where you have all of your PII data and other such data masked, and people can consume it and not have to worry about seeing something that is inappropriate for them to even see. That's where we want to go, but we're not quite there yet from a technology perspective. So it's going to be still some time for us to apply our common sense and educate people on what they can and can't see.
All right.
Okay, we have a comment and a question. We got time for a couple more from Julie. She is a raving fan of yours, Sherri. She says, please tell Sherri I love the way that she changed the culture. And then she also has a question. She says, she asked, you mentioned rewarding those that were the early adopters and that found the valuable insights. Can you tell us more about how what was the reward structure that you had in place?
Yeah, so we tried to make it fun first and foremost. So we did have some, say small prizes that we gave to people that came forward and shared their stories. And so this is what I found. And we helped to put those, document them in, just kind of a general format that said, here was the problem statement that this person was trying to solve for. Here's what they did, and here's what they found. And we advertised those, there are little storyboards, and made them available for other people to see. Because in a large company, I guarantee you, many people are trying to solve the same problem. And so, helping to share what people have done to solve problems not only, makes them feel good about it, but we gave out some, rewards in terms of, sometimes it was swag from the vendors that we were able to give them. Sometimes it was a small, monetary reward, and it was the visibility that those people got. And we did Tableau visualization experiments and also contests. And so we had our senior executives sometimes as the people who were judging. And
Cool.
so, it's pretty exciting when you're an analyst and, you might even be an intern coming into such a large organization and having the opportunity to present your findings to a high-level executive was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of a combination of monetary, it was giving them recognition and giving them some time with the senior executives that, really made it, fun and something to aspire to.
You also promoted them learning how to tell a story with that data. It sounds like
We did.
right?
We did.
Yeah.
Storytelling is incredibly important. Being able to help others understand what was the process you went through to achieve that insight, and that's probably just as important, because you might be able to present the findings, but if you haven't given the leaders the confidence in how you got there, they may have more questions about, how did you come at this conclusion? So, helping people tell the stories and leveraging the technologies to be able to help tell those stories as well was extremely powerful. And, it just really validated the process in terms of how did you get to that insight, and how do you trust that insight that person has given you. Yeah,
that's the culture importance there too.
that's right.
Yeah, the other hint I picked up there too is as part of rewarding these people and giving them visibility, you're also letting the enterprise know that the problem's been solved and here it is. Don't build it again. Right. So you promoted that reusability. Right?
We did. Yeah, and we did. In fact, in some of our areas within the organization, we really promoted that through implementing those analysis right into our operating systems. So as an example, if it were something that, gave insight on a monthly basis, we potentially had those things reviewed by the president or by the CFO of a segment. And because they were using it, then it became, everybody needed to use that because the leaders were using it and you had to have, answers to those certain things. So by embedding it, it became extremely scalable.
Yep.
And it really helped people then, focus. We need to solve the data problem, which is most often the most challenging thing. But once you solve that problem with the data, then you can, spend more time working on the analysis as well.
Right. Cool.
Great.
All right, Kelly, do we have time for one more? Or
we've got a couple more, but I think we'll wrap it up. Here's the last one that we'll be able to get to, but we might be able to get to some of the others via email after the session.
Okay.
So we have a question coming in from Bob. He asks, how do you balance self-service from becoming a disassociated rogue IT group?
There's a mouthful.
Yeah. I think, again, this is where pulling different areas together and collaborating with multiple functions is really helpful. I think, having IT at the table is super important, but having the business folks, the analysts together and going through that process together is a way to help reduce the, let's say siloed deployments and things like that. It's rarely, you can rarely deploy anything without having a collaborative group. And the more we can break down those barriers, the better it is. So just try to identify your key stakeholders at the beginning and pull them in, make them part of the process, make them part of the decision, give everyone a voice so that you're making the decisions together. And that often really helps bring those groups together and avoid some of that, one-off rogue types of activities.
Yeah, it's back to that transparency thing again, right?
It is, yeah.
Cool.
Great. Thank you guys. What a wonderful discussion we've had.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, this is like knowledge bombs just being dropped all over the place. So Sherri, thank you for joining us, and Mike,
it's my pleasure.
Yeah, so just as we wrap up, we just want to let everybody know that Great Data Minds is happy to announce that we have a new 4-week accelerated self-service analytics program that is designed to help get organizations up and running to reap some of the great benefits that we've heard about today. So if anybody has any questions about that, they can reach us at info@greatdataminds.com. And that's it. Thank you everybody for joining us, and we hope everybody out there is doing well and is healthy.
Yep. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Celia, and everybody stay safe and healthy.
Yeah, thank you,
Thanks,
Sherri.
guys.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Yep. Bye-bye.